Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Word in Clarity channel. Thank you for coming back. Today, we want to look at the topic intercession. And the reason why this is important is because I notice a pattern. It looks as if the prayer lives of a lot of people dies when they attain a certain level of success. And so I was pondering about it. Why is this so? It looks as if there's a certain kind of prayer life many Christians have adopted, and that prayer life dies after success. The moment they no longer require certain needs that they used to have, the moment some of their prayers are answered and they attain a certain level, they achieve something, a certain height, they attain a position, a certain level of fame, they tend to die in that prayer life, because it looks as if that kind of prayer is not sustainable. It doesn't stand the test of time, because the problems they used to have no longer exist. The needs they used to have are all met, and so now they are stuck in that loop of seeing prayer as unnecessary. And so we want to look at why this is so. Why is it that the prayer lives of many people seems to die when they attain success? This is because not many Christians are intercessors. We're going to look into intercession and the importance of intercession. Anytime prayer is mentioned, the first thing most people think about is a personal request. In fact, the content of the prayers of many Christians can be summed up into personal petitions. It's not wrong, but it can be problematic. For many people who claim to have a strong prayer life, you would realize that what they call a prayer life is just a continuous cycle of praying for personal needs and wants. For something to become a life, it must be sustainable, and it must be something that can outlast the meeting of a need or a want. So let me explain this. If all I pray for every day is to pass my school exams and I'm finally done with school, does that mean my prayer will come to a halt? So you have people at some point in their lives were praying for a specific thing, and that thing became a reality. Because their entire prayer was about that thing, there seems to be a decline in their prayer life, because now there's nothing to pray about. It's one of the major reasons why you see people who attain a certain success, a certain level of fame or position, and they see prayer as that thing that is for the poor. People who have challenges, they are the only ones who can pray or who must pray, right? So there's this warped ideology about prayer in general, that what are you doing praying for 2 hours? Because in our minds, prayer is only for asking for things. So if I seemingly have everything, all the material things, what am I spending hours in prayer for? And it's because the content of people's prayer is what is flawed. We are expected to be intercessors. Philippians chapter 2 verse 3, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. So the root of the issue here is selfishness. For the longest time, everything has been about self among Christians. Even when you talk about prosperity, many people are not looking at prosperity in terms of God is blessing me so that I can be a blessing to other people. It's from the lens of God is blessing me so that people can see that I'm also a person. And so it's very subtle. It's not obvious, it's not glaring, but there's this subtle selfishness that runs across a lot of things we do as Christians. And so we want to attain that thing so that we have a name for ourselves, right? We want to become that person so that people can respect us and revere us. You see? But everything God gives a person is not just meant for that person, it's meant to benefit other people. And so that undertone of selfishness is what has plagued the prayer lives of many people. And so when you see non-Christians, for instance, mocking prayer and saying it's not everything that is about prayer, and make statements that degrade the essence and power of prayer, is because there has been a misplacement of the actual essence of prayer. And so all they see prayer to be is that once I'm in trouble, I call on God and He answers. So some people were once in poverty, they had a change of life in terms of material increase, and then they came to the conclusion that Christianity is a way to keep people in bondage, because to them, they now have freedom. Alright, so once everything around me seems to be working well, I won't see the need to pray, because all along, all my prayers were to meet my personal needs. Once that is sorted, what's the point anyway? So we see God as a genie we run to when we are in trouble. But that's not supposed to be the case. Prayer is beyond just asking for what I want to see personally in my life. And once we understand the place of intercession and we are applying this, you see, I can have problems in my life and still pray for other people. I don't need to be fine myself to stand in the gap for other people. And so once you're incorporating that system of prayer, of intercession every day, no matter how high you go, you will still see the need for prayer, because it was not about just you. So if prayer is only about personal needs, then solving those needs will logically eliminate the motivation to pray. If the only reason you seek the Father is to escape the storm, then you will abandon Him once you reach the shore. And that's the story of a lot of people who backslid. There is something that intercession does. It gives you access into a world that is beyond your own. Alright, because in intercession you are going beyond yourself. So what it takes to pray for myself is not as much as what it takes to pray for another person or a whole organization, for instance, right? The will of another person is involved when it comes to intercession, and there is a stamina it builds in you will never have if all you do is pray for yourself. In fact, there is an expansion of spiritual reach for an intercessor. So if I want to expand in terms of my spiritual reach, intercession is one of the major ways. This is due to the fact that if I'm praying for myself, I have dominion over my own life. I have the ability to change things concerning my own life. But when I'm interceding for other people, I have extended that reach into covering other people. So if I'm praying for a certain group of people, what happens is that anytime the Lord wants to do something in their lives, or there is an impending danger concerning those people I'm praying for, I will have to know, because I am in their domain. I am covering them in that place of prayer. And so now my influence in the spirit is just beyond me. I am now able to cover other people. That's the concept of dominion. You can have dominion over your own life and your own affairs, but you may not have power to change things in other people's lives. because your reach in that spiritual realm is not up to that point, and it takes an intercessor to get into that place. So prayer gives something beyond just answers. There is a spiritual maturity that happens to the intercessor. In fact, the more you pray, the more there are things you will experience in prayer. There are things about prayer you don't learn by reading books on prayer. You learn by actually praying. And it's in that place of intercession that you will discover a lot of things about prayer that you may not have discovered when you're praying for your own self. So it takes more effort, and it's tougher to pray about something that does not directly affect you. And that's why intercession is one of the toughest prayers to do. It's a selfless thing to intercede for others. And so because of that undertone of selfishness that I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are missing out on this kind of prayer. The prayer life that dies after success is the one that is need-based. If you ever wondered why many Christians aren't influencing the world as they ought to, that undertone of selfishness is part of it. We have had many Christians in the past say, Lord, if I get this position, I'll influence people for you. And they got there and did nothing, because in reality, their hearts were never for the people, but for their own gain. And many times you won't know this until you get to that place of authority. You think you are humble, but wait until you are handed certain resources, certain opportunities. And that's when you know the true you. That's why we are encouraged to examine if we are still in the faith. It's very important. You may never know who you really are until certain resources get into your hands. And so we care more about ourselves. So everything we are doing is to get a benefit for ourselves. James 4:3. You ask and receive not, because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lust. So I could be doing a good thing, but my motive could be wrong. In essence, you could be a prayerful person, but the motives for prayer are wrong, because all that prayer is just engulfed with self. You are looking for your own self-gratification, and you have hidden behind prayer to show that you're a prayerful person. Nothing about other people, nothing about the advancement of God's kingdom. Everything is about self and what we are going to attain. You see, the needs of man are insatiable. Even the wealthiest of people still have needs that they need to meet. And so you are never going to get to the point where you have no problems. Right? You are never going to get to that point. And so if you are waiting to be perfect before you give to other people, if you are waiting to be perfect before you bless other people, if you are waiting to have everything before you impact people, you are going to be waiting for a long time. Intercession is one of those major ways that you can impact a life. The person may not even need to know that you are standing for them in prayer. But heaven sees you, and that's the most important thing. Many times we are in a generation where we want to set up a camera for everything. We want to show that we are helping people. We want to show that we are blessing people, we are impacting lives. And so because intercession is one of those things that there's no setup for a camera, people are not seeing you, and it looks like you are not being seen for what you are doing. Many people don't want to be in that place. So there are distorted forms of prayerfulness, right? Certain things that we do, we think we are prayerful, but it's a distorted form of prayerfulness. It's a facade, it's not a real thing. And one example is people who only pray when there's trouble. You see, there's no consistency in that prayer life. It's once in a while. When things are fine, God can't find me anywhere. But the moment trouble hits, I'm running. I'm crying, I'm all humble, and I'm the most spiritual in that season because I'm looking for God's help. We have people who do those kinds of prayers, and we have the people who just pray for public performance. You see, publicly they are very prayerful, but what happens when no one is watching? In the privacy of their home, are they really that prayerful? Or they only show that spectacular display when they are outside? And then the third thing is, there are people who are obsessed with the devil and the kingdom of darkness. Like every prayer of theirs has to do with fighting a witch, fighting a wizard, or stuff like that. And we are not disputing the existence of the devil and his cohorts or witches. But when all your prayer is about that, again, when everything seems peaceful and it looks like there's no witch in your life, what will your prayer life look like? And so these are wrong forms of prayerfulness. People who pray a lot, but it's wrong because number one, they are only coming because they're in trouble. Number two, they are only doing it for a show. And number three, they are always in a war, fighting one demon or the other. You see, anytime you are praying about your own personal requests, because you want it desperately, your heart is involved. You are very passionate about it. James 5:16, the B part, says, the heartfelt prayer of a righteous man avails much. So, if your heart is involved, you are more likely to see results. And so, this means that in praying for another person, you first need to get passionate about them, have compassion about the situation at hand. But because of the rise of selfishness, many are unable to do that. When it comes to our own personal prayer points, we are yelling, we are so passionate. But if you're asked to pray for your nation, we don't see that same compassion, that same zealousness. When it's time to pray for souls, we don't see that same fire that you bring. We are waiting for our own problems to be fixed before we can look at the next person. But the truth is, no matter how tough you think your life is, another person is even going through a much tougher situation. So when you look at Joseph, for instance, when he was in prison, he was there not because he had done what he was accused of, but even in that place, he could tell when someone's mood was down, and he asked them a question about how they were. And that's how he got to interpret the dream of those prisoners. Even in a tough time, he was still concerned about people. So these are a few things I've learned about intercession. First thing, if there's anything you don't like about a person's behavior, instead of gossiping, right? Since you claim you're concerned about how they are living, just pray for them. Many religious people who are often hypocritical tend to claim they are winning souls by being vile towards people they want to see a change in. And that's not what Jesus did when he met sinners. Second thing, if someone offends you and you're unable to let go, praying for them over a period of time would help work on your heart. Anyone you pray for, you would easily love. You can't hate the person you pray for. If you find yourself disliking someone, hurt by what they did to you, the first time you pray for them, it will be weird because why am I praying for this person who hurts me, right? But as you do it over a period of time, you will start to feel sorry for them. You wouldn't feel hatred for them anymore, because that's what prayer for a person does to your heart. You can't hate who you pray for. That's why the Bible says, pray for your enemies and those who persecute you. The third thing, people lose their prayer fervor when they have no one or nothing else they are praying for outside of themselves or their family. You can pray for souls, pray for your nation and its leaders. The Bible says pray for the city in which you dwell, because in its prosperity you'll also find prosperity. In its peace you'll find peace. Right? So you pray for your nation, you pray for its leaders, you pray for your church, you pray for the body of Christ in general, you pray for souls. There's so much happening in the world. You're praying for the purpose of God in these end times to be established. You are praying for men and women of God. You see, when people see a pastor or hear any story about a spiritual leader who has done something he shouldn't be doing, the first thing is we are judging them. Why would a pastor do this? Why would a Christian do this? But we don't understand that once something bad happens in that sense to a spiritual leader, the number of people that can be drawn astray is large. And so by one pastor falling, the impact is great. And the kingdom of darkness rejoices. That is where your prayer comes in for these people, that because they are doing the work of God, the devil is after their lives, after their families. You pray for the children of men and women of God, that the devil wouldn't use them or their spouses against what God has called them to do. But we don't pray. We are just there to judge once something goes wrong. In conclusion, we know what Job went through with his losses. However, what led to the double he had after the affliction was actually intercession. Job 42:10 says, after Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. So he looked past his own calamity and focused on other people. Proverbs 11:25, the generous soul shall be made rich, and he who waters others will be watered himself. So generosity can also be expressed in intercession, not just giving. As you pray for what doesn't concern you, God will take care of your own needs. Trust him, because whatever a person sows, that person will reap. I hope you were blessed by this. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment any topic that you want us to discuss on this channel. Stay blessed.